Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Cole. I'm from the Department of Public Service. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time this afternoon to talk about the LMI EEBE portfolio with us. We're going to get started now. And let me just start by doing a couple of introductions. So I'm joined today by several colleagues from the department who are working on LMI issues. Colin Atkins, who will be working to keep the meeting on track today. Maud Emerson, Tanya Dougal, and Arturo Lua, who will be supporting the conversation in various ways today. In addition, we have several representatives from the program administrators who are implementing the LMI EEBE programs. We have representation from Con Edison, from National Grid, and from NYSERDA. And you'll be hearing more from those folks as they talk about their programs just in a few minutes. As outlined in the notice announcing the webinar today, we're hosting this conversation as a way to preview the LMI energy efficiency and building electrification programs that are rolling out this year. As you've heard, we are recording this webinar, and just be aware of that. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the content, I did want to spend a little time just covering some housekeeping items. So number one, we have an hour and a half scheduled for this conversation today. We're going to do our best to stay on time, and also, answer any questions that you all have. So we are going to, try to move through the slides as quickly as we can, and preserve time for conversation. As you all have entered the WebEx environment, you have been muted. We're asking that you use the QA feature or raise your hand if you have a question. The chat feature is enabled and participants can use it. However, we're not actively monitoring the chat box, so we may not see any comment or question that you have. So please raise your hand or use the QA function if you do have a question or a comment. We're going to do our best, as I mentioned, to provide as much time to answer all questions and hear your comments, as we can today. If there are any questions that we're unable to answer during the webinar today, we will be following up on all questions that come in with a response in writing. And so we will post a summary of the Q&A that we discussed today, along with other meeting materials, into the DPS Document Matter and Management System, DMM, under case 25M0249. And when we do follow up after today, we will send you all a link to help you access that case number, that docket, as efficiently as possible, so you're not looking through DMM for the content. Next slide, please. So in terms of the conversation today, we really have three goals. Number one, we want to discuss updates on the LMI energy efficiency and building electrification portfolio. Number two, we want to preview the LMI EEBE programs that are launching this year. And number three, we want to discuss the next steps that we're taking to implement and manage the LMI EEBE portfolio. If you all have other goals or other outcomes that you're hoping to get out of the webinar today, please drop them into the Q&A function, and the DPS team will be monitoring, and we'll try to address those additional goals that you have throughout the conversation. If you do have additional thoughts on what you'd like to see from the stakeholder webinars that we do host, we have an email address right on the slide, equity@dps.ny.gov. Please just send us an email. Let us know, what you're interested in discussing, and we'll take that into consideration and work to offer up a conversation on those topics. Next slide, please. Okay, so with respect to the agenda, we're going to start with a high-level overview of the LMI EEBE portfolio. Then we're going to spend a bulk of the time. We're hoping to carve out about an hour to hear about the program modifications and new programs that'll be launching in 2026 under this portfolio of programs. We're going to talk a little bit about the performance management of this portfolio, so really the work that the DPS staff will be doing to oversee the programs. And we'll talk about the future engagement that we're hoping to have on this portfolio as it unfolds. And then we'll wrap up, hopefully with a little bit of time for questions or discussion. Next slide, please. So, this is a meeting where, we have about, 180 people registered. We're expecting a lot of attendance. And I wanted to go through a few ground rules for the conversation today before jumping in. So number one, as I mentioned earlier, we are recording this meeting. We are going to post a link to the conversation, to the actual WebEx, and you'll be able to hear the conversation after the webinar. So, anything you say here is public. We're asking that, when you do raise your hand and you're called on to provide a response or ask a question, please share your name and what organization you're with before speaking. And then please, when you're done, just mute yourself. We ask that everyone, show respect for your fellow participants and presenters. We have a lot of content to work through. I'm sure there are a lot of questions and a lot of perspectives that we want to hear from. So please try to be succinct with your comments and questions, and provide space for other attendees. To that note, so step up when necessary. So if you do have questions or comments, please kind of share those, but then also step back and provide space for other attendees, especially those who haven't had a chance to weigh in the conversation yet. And lastly, all conversations, and in particular, meetings like this, I think you benefit from if you're present and you're actively listening and participating in the conversation. So please do your best. We know you're juggling multiple different obligations and priorities, but try to be present and be an active listener. Thank you. So with that, let's move on. And I do want to spend just a few minutes providing an overview or a refresher on the LMI EEBE portfolio. Next slide, please. Maybe the other way. Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who haven't been able to follow the work that has been underway around the low and moderate income energy efficiency and building electrification portfolio, the Public Service Commission back in May of 2025 issued an order that authorized $1.57 billion in energy efficiency and building electrification programs targeting the low to moderate income market segment for the 2026 through 2030 program years. These initiatives are largely contained within the 1 to 4 family market segment, affordable multifamily buildings, workforce development activities, as well as engagement and awareness initiatives. These programs will be collectively administered by Con Edison, National Grid, and NYSERDA. We'll get into roles and responsibilities a little bit more later in the conversation, but just at a high level, Con Edison and National Grid are working collaboratively to offer an affordable multifamily program in their service territories, so kind of in the New York City metro area. And NYSERDA is responsible for offering affordable multifamily services upstate. They're also responsible for administering 1 to 4 family energy efficiency and electrification programs throughout the state, with the exception of Long Island, who were served through PSEG, LI, and LIPA. And then NYSERDA is also responsible for administering market supports, such as workforce development, engagement, and awareness activities. And so we'll hear more about those initiatives in due time. So as we're thinking about this portfolio, $1.57 billion is a sizable budget. And so, we're projecting that these initiatives will serve over 600,000 LMI households over the course of 26 through 2030, and will result in 100.4 million MMBTUs in lifetime energy savings. A couple other things to note here. The May 15th EEBE order also increased funding that is available to address pre-weatherization needs in low to moderate income homes and affordable multifamily buildings. So think about, health and safety or structural deficiencies that might otherwise prevent weatherization or efficiency work from going forward. The order also outlined parameters for low and moderate income electrification, right? So really kind of focused on ensuring customer protections, reducing the potential for energy burdens to increase when electrifying, that sort of thing. The order also required DPS staff to provide improved oversight of the portfolio. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like later today. And then lastly, the order aligned the eligibility of energy efficiency measures with the strategic framework, which the Commission adopted back in July of 2023, which essentially is prioritizing the measures that will have the greatest impact when considering the potential for decarbonizing homes. So envelope as a good example there. Next slide, please. With respect to the EEBE order, another thing worth flagging here is the Commission outlined the objectives for the LMI EEBE programs, right? So, the Commission is looking at reducing energy consumption and energy cost for households that experience the greatest energy burden. So that's a primary objective. Making it easier to participate in programs for not only applicants, but also contractors and service providers, right? Ensuring that program administrators and DPS are seeking and incorporating stakeholder feedback, along with input from market participants on how the programs are designed and implemented. It's important to improve insight and transparency into the way that the programs are performing. And then lastly, ensuring that there's clarity and certainty on how the programs are working, right? So the program rules, the program guidelines, program budgets, and ensuring that we reduce to the greatest extent possible any volatility that could happen when it comes to program changes year to year, right? So so that's an important goal that the Commission had outlined as well. Next slide, please. I won't spend too much time on this. This is mainly, a slide that we dropped in for future reference, but just wanted to kind of voice over this briefly. So since May 15th of last year, there's been a lot of work that's been underway, whether it's at the Department of Public Service or within the program administrators, essentially kind of building towards the launching of these new programs and initiatives. So, many of you, I see a lot of familiar faces on this webinar, participated in several webinar conversations that DPS hosted last year, where we really sought input from you all on how we're going to approach overseeing these programs. We also sought input on how we're going to be designing and implementing these programs at the program administrator level. And all of that culminated in the filing of an implementation plan by the program administrators. Most recently, an updated filing was submitted on February 2nd, so last Monday. And if you don't have access to it, we'll drop it in the chat later so you can kind of link to it. But essentially, that implementation plan outlines all of the details as it pertains to how these programs work, what the timelines and milestones are, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is shift the conversation over to the specifics as it relates to the programs that the program administrators will be implementing. And so first, we're going to start with the 1 to 4 family market segment, and I'm going to introduce Courtney Moriarta and Scott Oliver from NYSERDA, and I think one of you two will kick us off. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Chris, thanks. So just real quick, I'll introduce myself for those who don't know. I think hopefully most people do. Courtney Moriarta, I'm the director of our home modernization team here at NYSERDA. And I'm not going to do a lot of talking today. I'm going to turn it quickly over to Scott. He's going to take you through the changes to the Empower Plus program, and I'll be available for further discussion later. Thanks, Scott.
And Scott, just before you go, I just wanted to remind folks, we will have some time once you're done with your slides to answer any questions. So, so if folks have any clarifying questions right away, please drop them in the chat or in the QA function, and we'll seek to answer them. Otherwise, we will have some time to answer any questions that you have. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Oh yeah, thanks, Chris. So yes, I'm Scott Oliver. I am the current program manager for the Empower Plus program, and we'll be going over the changes to the program today. As folks may know, Empower Plus is a combination of the Empower and Assisted Home Performance program. Both programs have been around for over 20 years now. So we're launching new funding for the program, and we made some changes to meet that funding. But Empower Plus is continuing as a program. So let's go to the next slide. So we're really looking at making our changes to the program in groups, or as we're calling them, tranches, so that folks can know what's coming up, and then when the changes come, they come at a predictable time and cadence, so that we're not making changes very often. So for the first tranche, we're looking at starting these changes in mid-March, probably around March 18th. So we're starting with some changes to how contractors can submit applications. We're looking at the low-income eligibility changes stated in the order. We have an incentive cap for moderate income. We're increasing the project incentive caps for upstate and downstate. We're making some changes to light bulb eligibility. And we're changing some heat pump water heater incentives, updating installation requirements for heat pumps, and updating project photo requirements. We're not going to be going over all those today. We're mainly going over the changes that are directly related to the EEB order. We did have a contractor meeting last Friday where we went over all these changes in depth, and we have a copy of that on our contractor support site if you're interested in some in-depth conversation. Later on this year, we're looking at incorporating pre-weatherization enhancements, introducing some regional plans to increase uptake in underserved regions, and install some public-facing dashboards. And then next year, we're looking to deploy a new project management system to replace a current NIHAP system, and introduce a renter offer and make a few changes to direct installs. So let's get started with some in-depth on these measures. So the EEB order calls on the Empower Plus program to focus on certain customer types. That includes referrals from utility customers participating in energy assistance programs, customers in geographic DACs, customers with high energy cost burdens, and customers in areas that have been underserved historically by the program in regions like the Capital District, Hudson Valley, New York City, and North Country. So we're going to be operationalizing these customer focus types in certain ways. One of the first ways we're going to be doing that is allowing contractors to submit applications for defined customer segments. Back in August, we temporarily suspended the ability of contractors to submit applications, and we are bringing that back. We are allowing customers to submit applications for some kind of customers. We're looking at initially allowing the contractors to submit applications for folks who have what we call categorical qualifications. That is, people who have award letters from programs such as SNAP, HEAP, and other programs. We're also looking to establish pipeline management at the application submissions stage to maintain program stability and align demand with the planned budgets. That's very important that we manage the program to the budgets we have, and we're looking at implementing this as a way to make sure that we can kind of even out the program and stay true to our budgets. Next slide, please. Yeah, so starting on March 18th, 2026, contractors will be able to submit applications for customers who have categorical income verification. Customers will have access to My Energy for the purpose of submitting and monitoring these applications. Contractors will also be able to see the applications of customers who have listed the contractor as the contractor of choice on their applications. There's going to be some training, and we will have the most update training links in our program announcements. So here's those categorical eligibility types. Again, there's HEAP, SNAP, SSI, TANF, the Weatherization Assistance Program, and public assistance. So those are the categories we use now for categorical eligibility, and that's what we'll be continuing to use. So customers will be able to submit applications using those award letters. Next slide. So historically, Empower Plus has used 60% of state median income to determine income eligibility for low-income customers. The EEB order requires Empower Plus to use 60% area median income or state median income, whichever is greater. So this is a change to the program. So we are redoing our income qualification guidelines right now. We will update the income qualification tables for these new numbers by March 15th, 2026. And then TRC will start using the updated tables for qualification on March 18th. If a customer who has previously applied to the program and was classified as moderate income is now eligible for low income, their contractor can request that TRC review the application. If they now qualify as low income, then a new project will be created in NIHEP with a revised application enabling the customer to qualify as low income. We should note that's just for customers who have applied in the last 12 months, who we still have income qualification for. If someone has applied more than 12 months ago, they need to submit a new application. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. On March 18th, 2026, the program will update incentive caps for all projects submitted to the program that do not yet have a submitted work scope. This is the important part. The incentives are really for people who have not had their work scope submitted to the program by their contractor. So that's the stage that a project needs to be at to receive the new incentives. Also, the moderate income incentive will cover 50% of the project cost up to the incentive cap. We have a good example of how that works on the next slide. So can you please go back for a sec? Thanks. So the downstate low income incentive will, for the first unit, will be $14,000. For moderate income, it will be $7,000. Upstate, the low income incentive will be $12,000, and the moderate income will be $6,000. We are currently in discussions with LIPA to coordinate our incentives to make sure they align with the other incentives that we're offering. Go to the next slide. Yep. So for moderate income customers, Empower Plus will provide 50% of the cost of eligible measures up to the incentive cap. The incentive cap is going to change from $5,000 to $6,000 upstate for upstate customers and $7,000 for downstate. IRA HERE funds will be layered on top of this amount of funding. So if we have an example for this small project that has just air sealing, it costs $4,000. The base Empower incentive would be $2,000, which is 50% of that $4,000. Then we would layer on the IRA incentive of $1,600 on top of that. So the total possible incentive for this project for a moderate income customer would be $3,600. So yeah, that's how our moderate income will be working. So we will be layering that IRA on top of the existing incentives. Next slide, please. So the EEB order classified light bulbs as non-strategic measures that may continue in limited applications through 2027 and be phased out afterwards. As this is a high cost, low savings measure, with recent federal standards accelerating diminished savings opportunities, there are limited applications where direct install lighting measures will save sufficient energy to justify the cost. So beginning March 18th, 2026, eligibility for direct install lighting will be limited to replacement of existing in-service incandescent light bulbs with LEDs, and it has to be part of a comprehensive project where lighting is under 5% of the total project. So we're only going to be replacing LEDs or incandescent bulbs with LEDs, and then it has to be part of a bigger project. Light bulbs will not be available as a direct install measure. Next slide. I think that might be the last one. Oh yes, we have some recurring stakeholder engagement opportunities. There's the Residential Market Advisory Group, which meets quarterly. You can send an email to resmarket@nyserda.ny.gov to take part in that. It's a great opportunity for community folks, contractors, and distributors and manufacturers to all get together and discuss important topics for the residential energy efficiency contractor. We also have the Residential DAC Advisory Group. You'll hear more about that later from the ECE team. That's being put together right now and will meet on a bi-monthly basis. And then we do have a monthly home modernization program update meeting. What's the first Friday of every month? If you go to HPWES Contractor Support, there is a sign up page for that where you can sign up to get those monthly updates. You can sign up to get invitations to the meeting and sign up for our newsletter.
Great, thank you, Scott. So we have a few minutes to answer any questions that folks have, any clarifying questions, any other comments. And it looks like we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Number one, so Scott, John was asking earlier where he can get access to the contractor meeting materials that you had mentioned earlier. So is that a link that we could share with the group following the meeting today?
Yeah, I can post that in the Q&A. It is HPWES contractorsupport.com is our website with all things for the program, but we'll also share that link as well.
Great, thank you. And if folks have other questions that you have for Scott or the NYSERDA team as it relates to the 1 to 4 family programs, please go ahead and raise your hand. While we wait for hands to be raised, and Rebecca, I see you. We had another question from Frankie on whether Sullivan County is considered upstate or downstate according to the new guidelines.
I would have to check. We have it listed on our website. I would have to check. I don't have where all 50 states or 50 counties are memorized quite yet.
Okay, so we'll follow up on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Rebecca, you have your hand up. I'm going to unmute you, and if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hold on.
Can you try that?
Yeah. I think I'm actually was able to unmute myself, just so you know, in terms of the controls.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for this update. It's nice to see movement in a positive direction, specifically around incentive amounts. So I do want to just say thank you for that to the team. I have a question that I'd like to ask to clarify around the contractor's role in assisting with applications, specifically because it sounded to me like the change is now contractors are again able to help customers submit applications, but only if they're qualified categorically through a program, not if the household has, you know, an income below the 60% AMI in the community. Can you first clarify for me if that's the case or if I'm misunderstanding?
Yeah, you're correct. Currently, you know, to maintain our pipelines, we're only allowing contractors to submit applications for categorical people who have that categorical eligibility, and that really ties into, you know, the communities that, you know, the EBE order is telling us to focus on. So that's people who have been part of EAP programs and other people with high energy burdens. So currently we're using that categorical eligibility as a stand-in for those focus communities.
Okay, but so what that sounds like to me is that for those programs, again, they are using the state median income, not the area median income, correct? Because that was the argument you guys made, was that HEAP, you wanted to align with those programs. So what I'm understanding is you're actually not opening up any sort of ability for contractors to engage with people who are at 60% AMI or lower, who aren't in a so like it almost is like doing a disservice to the whole point of changing the rule.
Well, I mean, we're doing this because we need to be, you know, very fiscally responsible with how we are, you know, accepting applications to the program. So we really need to figure out how we can limit, you know, the number of applications contractors can submit to the program. So for now, we are using the categorical way to kind of measure that that application amount. You know, we really need to make sure that we stay within
This
our
is
budget.
the same thing that you guys do over and over and over, and your outcomes have super inequitable, racist, non-equitable outcomes. Sorry, it's the same thing. I'm just flabbergasted at this point. Anyways,
Rebecca,
yeah.
Yeah, so if I could just interject, like, so I think the intent here is the program is going to be able to serve households that are at 60% of AMI, right? So they might come in through other channels, and I think what I heard Scott say was to start with, there's a look at, you know, kind of where what the channels of customer participation are, so that way there's a way to, you know, oversee kind of the, you know, the pipeline and make sure that we are serving all of those households who do come in. I think this kind of this conversation kind of lends itself to kind of a real focus on how the program is doing, right? So we're going to be collecting data. We're going to look at, you know, what the outcomes of the program are in terms of serving customers at different income levels. And like, I'll just say from where DPS staff said, you know, we are kind of going to be working with the program administrators and with all stakeholders to figure out how to best, you know, calibrate programs, you know, over time to meet our objectives. So I think right now there's a bit of an uncertainty about, you know, how do we start, you know, kind of rolling this out without, you know, having a full appreciation for the number of projects that would be coming in and our ability to serve them. So that's my take on it. And we can certainly continue this conversation afterwards, but I have a couple other folks who do have.
Sure, I understand that. I do need to make one other point about this though, which is that this is not just about even the customers. This is about creating certainty and a healthy market for the contractors. The fact that even higher up from the team here is demand, like there are reasons, I don't know why they're deciding to say you can't submit, you can't submit. The contractors are choosing to leave the market because of these choices and then the uncertainty. And to me, what I'm seeing here is that you're like, if you want to create uncertainty, like this, you're continuing to do the same thing and it's going to be a problem. So there needs to be more work done on this, and it's pretty disappointing. Thank you.
So I take your point, and I think it's something that we definitely need to, you know, keep front and center in terms of how we're supporting both contractors and customers, right? Courtney, were you going to chime in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add two other things. So one is just to make clear that everyone understands that we're not excluding anyone from applying under AMI. It's just that with the tranches that Scott just described, initially, we're only going to accept those categorical applications through contractors, but a homeowner could still submit an application on their own. Like, we're not excluding them just because they're using AMI to qualify. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that. And then secondarily, specific to Rebecca's concerns, I know with the downstate market, there's another aspect of what we'll be working on later in the year once we get this regional report put together. It is our intent to, once we've fully identified and quantified the issue in different regions around the state that appear to be underserved historically, that we'll be working closely with the community and community partners like yourself, Rebecca, to figure out how do we best serve those markets and what do we need to do differently in those markets to make sure that we're getting access to the program for the people who need it the most. So we haven't forgotten about you, and we are going to continue to pursue that. It's just going to take us a little bit to get there.
Thanks, Courtney. So I want to keep an eye on the clock. We do have other content to get into, but we have a couple of hands who have been raised. And so why don't we open it up for Faith? Do you want to go ahead and ask your question? And then John, and then we're going to move on to the conversation on the affordable multifamily programs.
Hi, everyone. I was curious, are the IRA incentives will they still be able to be applied to low income projects?
Yes, they will. I was just using the IRA and net incentives to show for how it stacks with moderate income, but we expect to have IRA funding at least through the middle of next year, if not longer. But we are assessing that, but for now it's still available for moderate and low income folks.
Great. Thanks, Faith. Thank you, Scott. And then John Adams, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Presuming everybody can hear me. It's actually just a look back question with the reinstatement of the 50% cap on the Tier 3 award, the way that it had been. One of the things I was curious about is thankfully, from time to time, people do move up in their household income. And so I know that when a household participates with the Empower program under the current program manual, it kicks in kind of like a 3-year look back where that property cannot use a comfort home incentive. Now, I was just curious if, in the event, say a moderate income household does Tier 3, they've got that dollar for dollar, 50% off, incentive, which is similar to a certain way with the packages with Comfort Home. If they don't complete all of the insulation needs through that Tier 1 Empower, and then the household income rises and they would be eligible for the market rate Comfort Home, do they still have to wait that full 3-year look back period on that? Or will there be some wiggle room for perhaps the moderate Tier Empower participants if they see an increase in household income?
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure that there is a 3-year look back between Empower Plus and Comfort Home. So I'll need to look into that, John, but I can get back to you on it.
Okay, I know I had run into a household situation where it was like somebody had gone through Empower, they sold the house, and then the new person who owned the house with their own SBC and their own National Grid account had tried to apply, and originally it was rejected because they were like, oh no, it's still, they had Empower within the look back period, so they can't do it. And so finally I was able to advocate and say, nope, different person, here's the deed, here's the date of sale, it's even visible on Zillow, they have their own SBC, and then it was approved, and he has since moved forward with a nice project at his home through Comfort Home. But that was the first time I was alerted to that look back period between Empower and Comfort Home 2. And I just thought, especially with that Tier 3 being like a 50% dollar for dollar incentive similar to the Comfort Home package, if somebody makes a couple extra $100 or something and moves up into the Comfort Home tier, they have additional work to do. Was just hoping that it wasn't going to be prohibitive. But thank you for checking into that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll look into that, John.
I would also just note real quick that we're trying to avoid anywhere that we possibly can splitting up weatherization projects over multiple years. So to the extent that we can provide sufficient funding to get the full project done in the one transaction, that's really what we want to try to do, and not leave a home partially insulated for a couple of years, because we know that potentially causes problems. So definitely if you have projects like that, make sure we're aware of them and we kind of work on a plan together.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, John, for the question. And so let's go to the next slide, please. Thanks, everyone, for the questions or the comments. We will be following up on a few of those items that we promised to follow up on. So let's move on to the next topic, and we're going to start the conversation now with Brian Cabezas from NYSERDA. Brian, do you want to take the floor? And we're going to hear from Brian about the NYSERDA administered low and moderate income multifamily programs. And then after Brian, we'll hear about the downstate affordable multifamily programs from National Grid and Con Edison.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and thanks all for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. Presuming yes.
Yes.
My name is Brian Cabezas. Great, thanks, Chris. I'm the team lead for multifamily team at NYSERDA, and really happy to be with you all this afternoon. So for a quick overview, I'm going to cover 4 program areas in this section. I'll be covering and speaking to the Affordable Multifamily Program Upstate, AMP Up. That will be a new offering for existing buildings upstate. Then I'll cover the statewide tech assistance offering, which is essentially a regrouping of our existing TA offerings. I'll then cover direct injection, which is really a continuation of our affordable housing agency partnership offerings. And lastly, the 4th item is new affordable, new construction tech assistance offerings. So as the slide shows, I'll start with the AMP Up program. So we can go to the next slide, please. So AMP Up, Affordable Multifamily Program Upstate, it will be an open enrollment program that will provide end-use incentives and integrated technical assistance for our upstate affordable multifamily energy efficiency and building electrification projects, and replaces the upstate affordable multifamily energy efficiency program that closed last year. The program will provide services for...
Where's your sunscreen?
I think we're still getting a little bit of chatter. Feel free to mute your phones if you can. The program will provide services for buildings that are north of the Con Ed service territory. They pay into the electric or gas system benefits charge. Mixed-use buildings are acceptable for this program. In this program, we can have projects that our project size must be at least 5 units. Oh, sorry, yeah, stay on that slide for a moment. That are at least 5 units, and it can include multiple buildings. So something I just wanted to point out. And for the affordable multifamily housing definition, this is the same as it is with utilities and the AMP program rather. We expect that the building has at least 25% of those households are at or below 80% area median income or estate median income, whichever is higher. We can go to the next slide, please. Thanks, Colin. So for this program, there are 2 pathways based on the building typology. There's the low-rise pathway and a larger building pathway. So for the low-rise pathway, those are for buildings that are up to 3 stories and up to 20 units. So they do have to meet both parameters to fit into the low-rise pathway. In this pathway, the incentives are capped at 85% of the project costs. And a benefit for being in this pathway is that there's a more even distribution of incentives across the project lifecycle. And we'll talk about the project lifecycle in the next slide. And in comparison to that is our larger building pathway. So for this, these are for buildings that really fall outside of that low-rise pathway. So buildings that are greater than 3 stories or greater than 20 units. In this pathway, the incentive is capped at 70% of the project cost, so it's a lower cap than the low-rise pathway. And in the larger building pathway, a greater portion of the incentives are placed at the end of the project lifecycle, so really coming up towards the end of the construction phase. Both building owners could work with our concierge service or with existing contractors, multifamily contractors for the purposes of this program. To speak to the concierge service, that is a service that will essentially be providing owner's rep level services for the projects going through AMP Up. So those services include project planning, competitive bid process, capital funding stack guidance, and analysis, construction oversight and cost management, and project closeout. These contractors will be assigned to projects based on regional coverage and existing workload. Separately, the NYSERDA multifamily contractor network is our existing contractor network that was launched back in November 2024. It is available statewide, so not just for AMP Up, but can also service just buildings that are interested in support and resources. It accepts applications from new contractors on an ongoing basis. So if you're interested, if you're a multifamily contractor interested in joining this network, do feel free to reach out to us and learn more about that. The network will support projects going through the program, and building owners can really choose which provider they want to work with in this with this network. So concierge contractor, we assign the projects to those, assign the concierge contractors to those projects. Multifamily contractor network, providers, building owners can select their own provider. We can go to the next slide, please. So in this slide, we just wanted to give you a general understanding of the overall incentive schedule for AMP Up. So payments are made on a milestone basis. There will be 4 payments over the course of the project lifecycle. So we have a stage 1, which is a scope of work development. So that is inclusive of the energy audit and assessment that might be needed for the project. We have stage 2, which is our construction initiated, which is really just to show evidence that construction has started. Stage 3 is our partial construction. This stage is optional in many cases for most projects, but it is available if a project has reached a certain threshold and when it's wishing to get a midpoint payment. And then stage 4 is our construction completed stage. The funding is provided for measures installed and for technical assistance. There are a few different types of installed measures, and those will be paid out on a $1 per dwelling unit basis. So I list those here. That's those measure categories are prescriptive. These are primarily your direct install upgrades, low flow aerators and appliances, weatherization measures, so insulation and air sealing, electrification, so that is inclusive of your heat pumps, mini splits, heat pump water heaters. Then we also have deep energy retrofits. So these are upgrades that could support transition to a net zero building. So think heat recovery ventilation or envelope overclad. And lastly, something a little bit new for our programs is resilience enhancement. So this is really something that we're adding to our AMP Up program and for our multifamily programs. This enhancement is applicable for sites with identified climate hazard exposures that are defined by NYSERDA. And these enhancement measures are tied to specific base measures that are identified. One of those earlier measure categories previously identified. So to really give you an example, if we would provide incentives for flood proofing, that's one of our resilience enhancement measures, if the project is installing a heat pump system and also the building was found to be in a flood exposed area. And that climate hazard exposure is determined when you submit your application. So upon submittal of the application, we'll determine if it's in a climate hazard exposure, and we can speak to the client about and the provider about the possibility of resilience enhancement options for this project. Additionally, there'll be 2 forms of technical assistance, and those will be provided, will be cost shared upon the approved technical assistance budget. So we'll have both just the general energy assessment, energy audit, and scope of work development. So that's what I'm referring to as our general technical assistance. And then we'll have additionally a resilience design assistance. And those are incentives that could be provided for that resilience design work. I'm going to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of some of our stakeholder engagement activities that we had in mind for this program. First, we do plan to launch the program by the end of the month of March. Second, we'll continue to have our contractor webinars on a quarterly basis for our multifamily contractors and ownership contractors as well. well, the owners rep contractors will be notified through trainings and other opportunities about these opportunities. They're the ones participating in the concierge service. Additionally, we plan to engage stakeholders to assess the program's performance. And lastly, if needed, we'll update the program materials towards the end of the year. And we can go to the next slide, please. So next, I'll cover the LMI multifamily tech assistance.
Hey, Brian, can I break in real quick? It's Chris.
Sure.
So folks, just a reminder, we have a lot of comments getting dropped into the chat function. Unfortunately, we can't monitor that as regularly as we would want to. We have the Q&A feature up and running. So please, if you do have any comments or questions that you want us to pay attention to, drop them in the Q&A. Just go down to the 3 dots on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, click that. You see Q&A, and then you can enter your information in there. Thank you. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Okay, great. No, thanks for that. Yeah, maybe looking at the time, I'll try to pick up the pace. So next we'll go to the LMI Multifamily Tech Assistance Program. Yeah, thanks. So this program is really our approach to consolidate existing TA offerings, energy studies, on-site energy manager, and owner's rep into and under the Flex Tech program. The program eligibility is essentially the same as AMP Up, except in this case, the program services are available statewide. And we can jump to the next slide, please. So the TA services can essentially be grouped into 2 main service categories. We have our end use incentive TA. This category includes TA services for projects that are also going through downstate AMEP or upstate AMP Up. The projects will be cost shared at up to 100% of approved project, provided that the project shows construction is initiated. And given that the TA offering is serviced to meet the end use incentive program, we're working to streamline those TA offerings so that the TA services are right size for the end use incentive program's needs. Next is our custom tech assistance category. This is the other category that they will offer standalone tech assistance projects. And in this case, the building owner and provider can customize the scope of work within FlexTech. These projects are intended to be cost shared up to 75% of their approved budget, with the building owner or manager contributing 25%. We can go to the next slide, please. And here, similarly, it's just a snapshot of some upcoming stakeholder engagement activities. The program is also expected to be relaunched towards the end of March, and that is essentially an updated FlexTech program opportunity notice, inclusive of these EEB LMI multifamily details. We'll continue to have FlexTech consultant quarterly webinars throughout the year, and the program will participate in AMP Up and AMEP stakeholder sessions where appropriate. And I'll jump to the next slide, please. So the next program I'll cover is the direct injection program. This is really an existing program that will just continue to offer EEB funds for affordable housing agency partnerships. And we can jump into the next slide, please. So for those on the call that might be unfamiliar with the term direct injection, we've colloquially used that for programs that we're providing funding to existing housing preservation programs that are administered by New York State Homes and Community Renewal, which is HCR, and New York City Housing Preservation and Development, which is HPD, to reduce the incremental upfront cost difference between an efficient all-electric retrofit and the business as usual retrofit. Additionally, direct injection program provides dedicated TA providers to work with the project teams through design and construction process. For the 2026 to 2030 timeframe, DI will only focus on serving existing buildings. There are 2 EEB funded direct injection programs. That's the HCR's Clean Energy Initiative and HPD's Resilient and Equitable Decarbonization Initiative for Existing Buildings program, which is READY-EB. In terms of eligibility, those are really the regulated and affordable multifamily housing projects already participating in HCR programs or that are participating in HPD's preservation project pipeline. We can go to the next slide, please. In this next slide, that we'll cover. That's going to speak to the measure eligibility. Are you able to? Thanks. So in terms of measure eligibility, we'll be covering eligible program scopes that combine both electrification with building envelope measures. In terms of incentives, both CEI and READY EB, those programs provide incentives on a dollar per dwelling unit basis. There are more details in the term sheets that are available on the agency's website, so you can go there for those specific details. In terms of stakeholder engagement, HCR and HPD staff continue to conduct recurring stakeholder engagement sessions to update folks on the programs and the term sheet offering. So we really defer to our partners for that stakeholder engagement. In terms of timeline, eligible projects may apply to either CE and READY EB programs on a rolling basis. Go to the next slide, please. And for the last program area that I'll cover is the Affordable New Construction Program. This is really bifurcated into two technical assistance offerings. We have one on early stage design and the second on targeted post-construction commissioning support. So I'll first start with the early stage design tech assistance. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the intent of this early stage design is that we are trying to provide flexible early stage design TA to support design of high performance buildings. The EEB funding will provide it for affordable multifamily, and REGI funding will be used to service market rate multifamily and 1 to 4 unit homes. The program is available statewide and will be provided to new construction, substantial renovations, gut rehabs. Residential buildings are eligible, and projects are expected to be in the planning, concept, schematic, or design development phase. We anticipate launching this particular program sometime in Q2 of this year. We can go to the next slide, please. So the program will offer the following services under the planning and design support bucket, I essentially would say. We have integrated design and systems selection and sizing, energy modeling, load calculations, third-party certification, and sub-consultant design support, operations and maintenance preparation is the last one in that bucket. Additional services include training for designers on high-performance design, and then lastly, market adoption support on external-facing case studies and educational tools. In terms of incentives, those have the following structure. We have $1 per dwelling unit basis for 1 to 4 unit homes and $1 per square foot basis for low-rise and high-rise multifamily buildings. And we can go to the next slide, please. So in the next slide, we'll talk about the other new construction offering, which is the enhanced system commissioning. So in this offering, the expectation is that we will provide enhanced system commissioning and optimization to assist in buildings' long-term operation and maintenance. Similar to the other program, EEB funding is provided for affordable multifamily, and REGI is available for market rate and multifamily and 1 to 4 unit homes. The program eligibility is the same as the previous tech assistance offering, so no differences there. And for this offering, we plan to launch this one in Q1 2027. Go to the next slide, please. So the program will offer enhanced commissioning support, which will entail building baseline energy use analysis and discovery of issues, creating an enhanced commissioning plan of performance, verification optimization, intervention work, seasonal commissioning, troubleshooting systems, and reanalysis. And then similar to the other tech assistance program, we will provide training and ad hoc support and market adoption support. The incentive structure is also similar to the previous tech assistance offering, so it's $1 per dwelling unit for 1 to 4 unit homes and $1 per square foot for low-rise and high-rise multifamily buildings. And with that, I think that's the end of the full-time affordable multifamily program. So thanks so much. And I guess, Chris, we'll turn it over to questions or just keep going with workforce development.
So why don't we shift the conversation to the downstate affordable multifamily program? We do have a number of questions in the chat, so we're gonna save a little time following this next program update, and we'll kind of talk through some of those Q&A at that point in time before transitioning over to workforce development and engagement. So thanks, Brian. So let's introduce Sam Howe from National Grid and Sam Pastrick from Con Edison. Sam Howe, I think you're starting off.
Yes, I'm up first. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Howe. I support National Grid's LMI and market rate multifamily programs here in New York. So let's move to the next slide. So here's a quick run of show for our AMEEP presentation today. I'll tackle our upcoming implementation schedule, a quick program overview, budget for the new EEBE period, and then I'll hand it over to Sam Pastrick to really dive in on the program changes starting this year. On to the next one. Okay. So this schedule reflects our steps to launch AMEEP. AMEEP is continuing from last year. It hasn't stopped. In January, Con Edison and National Grid have been working to finalize our program documentation, including program manual and related technical guides. In February, while staff and our internal teams are reviewing this document, we are hosting a utility-led stakeholder listening session. So we'll detail the key AMEEP changes, health and safety data collection, and get feedback on our pathway design. Also in February, we'll send out some market communications previewing any changes to the comprehensive pathway and AMEEP electrification incentive rates. We'll send out a PC&IP webinar for the next month. And then in March, the new program manual will go live and be effective. We'll host a PC&IP webinar, and the program manual will be accessible on DMM and the accompanying NYSERDA and utility websites, along with the technical documentation associated with it. So just a quick overview, this program is administered jointly by Con Edison and National Grid for our service territories. We provide incentives for downstate customers that qualify as affordable for 5+ unit buildings. We make up 35% of the total LMI portfolio budget. And over the 5-year period, we anticipate contributing 58 million lifetime equivalent MMBTU savings across 950,000 affordable units. For the 2026 program year, we are improving electrification incentives, streamlining our pathways, changing weatherization incentive offerings a little bit, and improving our coordination with NYSERDA technical assistance, as well as evaluating health and safety data collection and pathways after that. On to the next. We plan to steadily increase our spend and our savings across the program years. So this is a incremental scaling, but we expect by the end of it across Con Edison and National Grid to spend an annual amount of $130 million. And I will kick it over to Sam Pastrick to detail some of these changes.
Sam. Hi, folks. Sam Pastrick here with Con Ed. Looking at time, I know folks are interested in getting into questions, so I'll try and run through these slides relatively quickly. Just a quick overview or reminder about how AMEEP is structured, at least from the energy efficiency side of things. The same eligibility criteria apply as have always been the case. So in order to qualify for AMEEP, you either have to have an existing regulatory agreement with the housing agency or some documentation indicating that at least 25% of the units therein are occupied by households at or below 80% AMI or SMI, whichever of the two is greater. The program, as it's been structured, and it will continue to be the case, We have two separate pathways, one for comprehensive projects, one for non-comprehensive projects. The key distinction being that comprehensive projects are geared toward multi-measure upgrades, really whole building energy retrofits. The incentive structure is on a dollar per dwelling unit basis. The incentives are generally higher, and we have sort of a tier structure with an accumulation of points that are tied to particular measures, whereas the non-comprehensive pathway is really looking at single or potentially two measure upgrades, and the incentive structure depends on the measure. So it could be identified, dollar per square foot, or dollar per roof space, or dollar per savings, again, depending on the measure. In general, I think fair to say non-comprehensive pathway projects are particularly helpful for buildings with limited or no financial reserves. Next slide, please. So some key program changes, at least for the energy efficiency component to AMEP. Really, in general, worth noting that we're doing our best to respond to not only direction from the May order, but also routine feedback that we hear from our participating contractor network and stakeholders like yourselves. So some key objectives that we really thought through in order to implement and operationalize some program changes. Looking to adhere to the strategic measure framework. I'd say overall, we're trying to right size incentives and emphasize not only lifetime savings, but making really strategic interventions, in particular emphasizing weatherization, which fair to say is a theme across both the LMI and non-LMI orders. We've made some modest adjustments to the comprehensive pathway structure and the associated rates. And in general, really looking to simplify and streamline the process to make things easier on the customer end. Next slide. A major change to the program in 2026 and future forward is the introduction of an electrification pathway, which is offered by Con Edison only. The LMI order authorized up to 15% of budgets to be spent toward affordable electrification. And so AMEP electrification will provide incentives to help customers electrify their space heating and domestic hot water. The idea here is really to integrate within the existing program structure. The eligibility criteria will be the same, but of course would need to have an active Con Edison electric account. Some key requirements to consider, and these will all be laid out in an updated AMEP manual, as Sam Howard indicated. Eligible measures will include space heating, central heat pump hot water, and or combined space and water heating. We're going to require attic cavity insulation if it's not already pre-existing. Incentives overall will be capped at 85% of project cost, which is consistent with the program overall. Won't be able to electrify common areas only. And a key component, which is very clearly identified in the order, is the prevention of cost shifting to tenants. And we'll look to have customers demonstrate no net operating cost increase. So we'll be supporting on that end with some upfront analysis. Next slide. Just to offer a bit of a visual cue as to how the incentive structure will be folded into the existing program structure. Effectively, we're just adding a new tier on the comprehensive side, unique to electrification. So at a lower point threshold, and the point values will vary depending on the project measures. For non-comprehensive, very similar idea. We're simply just adding on electrification incentives as eligible measures. So trying to keep the program consistent in the way that it's been operating just by folding in electrification incentives into both program pathways. Next slide. The pre-weatherization health and safety. The order provided some authorization of budget up to 10% of program administrators' budgets to include these funds for the potential remediation of structural deficiencies or other hazardous conditions that would otherwise prevent a building from participating in AMEP to complete either energy efficiency or weatherization projects. And so the way that Con Ed and National Grid have been approaching this work to date is that we've been talking with subject matter experts, with an eye toward evaluating potential program design concepts. So we've been engaging with organizations like AEA, our weatherization assistance program partners, and the goal ultimately is to leverage these findings from the existing programs that operate out there. This includes programs from around the country, like ComEd, to help us inform potential program design decisions. The emphasis for these efforts in 2026 will be determining how best to collect project information, project deferrals, projects that might not otherwise proceed due to health and safety conditions. Also worth noting that we will be hosting, as Sam had mentioned from the beginning of this presentation, a focused stakeholder listening session hosted by our two utilities this coming Wednesday, just to sort of further unpack at least our initial thinking on this topic. Some initial findings around program design decisions and any data forthcoming LMI implementation plan and implementation plans future forward. And that, I believe, concludes our portion of this presentation. So thanks, folks.
Great. Thank you, Sam and Brian for the preview of all of that useful information. I know, for those of you who are tuning in, we are kind of moving through the content relatively quickly, and you do have a number of questions that you want clarified. So what we're going to do here is maybe spend 2 minutes, and I have a couple of clarifying questions on direct injection to ask Brian, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. And then if we have any time at the end, we'll answer more questions. But regardless, we will respond to all questions or comments that are left in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll follow up over email on all of that. So Brian, a question about direct injection. Now I lost it. Okay, so from Susan, is there a chance that municipal housing authorities can benefit if they are not regulated by HCR from direct injection?
So they're not, I guess I take it from that question that they're not currently going through one of the HCR programs. And that is a consideration for eligibility for direct injection program. I can certainly take that back to our lead on the program to just verify that. But if they're not going through one of the HCR programs or HPD's preservation programs, then they would not generally be eligible. But I can save the final word for confirming with the team lead for that.
Okay, so
I'd be curious about that too.
Okay, yep. So that's a follow-up, Brian, that we'll get back to folks on.
And just confirming, I did just confirm on the side that is the case, but that project is certainly eligible to come into AMP Up. So do want to just, reemphasize that new program in case that's of interest.
Great, thank you. And then with respect to direct injection, can buildings receive incentives for heat pumps alone, or does the statement of work need to include building envelope upgrades as well? For direct injection, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat that one?
Yep. So can a building receive incentives for heat pumps as a standalone, or does the scope of work need to include building envelope upgrades as well?
So with direct injection, so this would really be applicable to the term sheet because HCR's Clean Energy Initiative is slightly different than the HPD Ready EB program. So I would refer those folks to the specific term sheets because the programs are not exactly the same with that respect.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Okay, so we are going to pause on questions, comments for multifamily at this point, and shift the conversation to a preview on the workforce development activities that are being funded under the LMI EEBE portfolio. So I'd like to introduce Laura Giannini from NYSERDA and Adele from NYSERDA as well.
Thanks, Chris. This is Laura. Thank you for everyone for joining the call today. Adele is not here, but I will cover our content shortly and answer any questions. So let's dive in. Workforce development was included in part of the Public Service Commission authorized funding under the EEBE orders. The program budget is split between LMI and non-LMI. There's $30 million for workforce development and training as part of the LMI portfolio and $53 million from the non-LMI portfolio. And we will be administering program activities jointly covering both of those areas. So NYSERDA will deploy its 2026 to 2030 EEBE funding across 3 primary activities. And these include clean energy career pathways training, which is focusing on preparing new workers for entry-level clean energy jobs. Secondly, we're offering targeted skills training and upskilling funding opportunities, which covers existing workers and a whole host of best practices and training on technologies and focused energy efficiency and building electrification topics. And lastly, we are administering Earn As You Learn wage reimbursement and retention incentives, which are the hiring incentives that you may be familiar with under the on-the-job training portfolio. Next slide, please. So a couple quick program updates in these 3 areas. The on-the-job training program, which provides wage subsidies to employers hiring new workers for in-demand clean energy jobs, has been updated to reflect some of the provisions of the EEBE orders. These updates launched middle of last month, and the program is open and accepting new applications. A couple features of the changes. We now have a new incentive for employers whose new hires earn industry recognized certifications, and we continue our commitment to incentivizing the opportunities for residents of disadvantaged communities and priority populations through higher incentives offered through the program. And then a preview of things to come. We are putting the finishing touches on our plans for the Career Pathways training funding opportunity. And career pathways projects are those projects that provide new entrants with technical skills, supportive services, and job placement support to help get their foot in the door and get placed in their first clean energy job. And we anticipate funding opportunity for training organizations to deliver career pathways training to launch sometime next month. There will be a separate program offering for targeted skills training and upskilling. And these projects will be focused on enhancing the knowledge, skills, and competencies that are necessary for existing clean energy workers to advance in their careers and really deliver high quality building retrofits and installations and in support of the EEBE programs. Similarly, this funding opportunity is planned to launch next month. So definitely stay tuned for those coming up. Next slide, please. One other area that we are actively working on as part of the EEBE order is a New York State workforce assessment of the EEBE sector. So key objectives of this assessment that is underway is identifying gaps in the EEBE workforce and barriers to meeting the workforce demand to implement the programs and have the market deliver at scale. We're looking to identify priority occupations, including pathways from training to a career. We are committed to integrating perspectives from across the EEBE ecosystem, and the assessment will be deploying surveys, listening sessions, and interviews from stakeholders. The assessment will identify barriers to entry in the workforce with a focus on disadvantaged communities and priority populations to really understand information on the availability of training programs, wraparound supports, and how that impacts the ability for someone to participate in these opportunities. The assessment will help inform the decision makers of prospective partnerships and collaboration opportunities. And really, we're looking for this to help with practical and actionable interventions in the workforce ecosystem so that NYSERDA's programs, as they're implemented during the 2026 to 2030 funding cycle, are as effective as possible in meeting the EEBE workforce needs. This assessment will be filed by September of this year. So we are up and running with getting that going. Next slide, please. And here's a quick snapshot of where we are now in the project timeline. The literature review and methodology development is well underway, and other kind of data collections is part of the scope. I do want to flag some engagement opportunities. We absolutely want to hear from stakeholders in various parts of the energy efficiency and building electrification industry and other interested parties who are touching this space in some way. So tomorrow we actually have a research methodology discussion and input session to do a deep dive in how the study is being implemented to make sure that the design and the methods being used are really capturing what we're looking to get out of this study and what the stakeholders across the state are interested in making of this study. So that is happening tomorrow at noon till 1 p.m. And if you are interested in receiving a invitation to that meeting, please email wfinfo@nyserda.ny.gov, and we'll get that calendar invite right over to you. And then separately, you'll see as part of the later tasks in this workforce assessment, oops, if you can go back one more. As I mentioned, we will be implementing surveys, interviews, and some facilitated workshops, really getting into the content of the study. And similarly, send an email to that email box to be added to the stakeholder contact list to find out ways that you can participate in this process. And we love to hear from all of you. And that wraps up my segment.
Thank you, Laura. So we have one question in the chat. Will the energy hubs be active in promoting the workforce development initiatives?
Yes. So similarly to how we have engaged with the hubs over the past few years, we look to continue that. We will be joining some upcoming meetings with the hubs to make sure everyone is aware of program changes and kind of helping spread information about how businesses and organizations who can participate in the programs navigate the funding opportunities. So similar to how the relationship has been in the past.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that, Laura, and thanks for the update on what's happening in the world of workforce development. So why don't we move on to the next topic, which we wanted to update everyone on, and that is the general awareness and education work that's happening at NYSERDA around the LMI EEBE portfolio. So I'm going to turn this over to Michelle Felicia from NYSERDA. So Michelle.
Thanks very much. Michelle Felicia from NYSERDA here. I serve on NYSERDA's Energy and Climate Equity team. I'm here in the Albany office with my team colleague, Tyler Picard. We'll be giving a very succinct, brief overview of the DAC engagement portfolio of the LMI implementation plan, and happy to follow up with any information sharing needs. One slide, please. So the Disadvantaged Communities Engagement Portfolio funds one NYSERDA program, the Regional Clean Energy Hubs, and two NYSERDA initiatives, the Energy Equity Collaborative and the Disadvantaged Communities Consultant Pool. Moving from left to right, NYSERDA's Regional Clean Energy Hubs are a statewide network of trusted, knowledgeable, community-based organizations within New York State that help provide support, guidance, and information to engage residents, affordable housing providers, and small businesses in disadvantaged communities, as well as assist low to moderate income communities and residents. There's 12 hubs, one in each of the 10 economic development regions, except for New York City, where there are 3 hubs. The Energy Equity Collaborative is a shared space for disadvantaged community representatives state agencies, and NYSERDA to collaborate towards shared goals, ensure alignment and transparency, and help shape energy and related program and policy decisions impacting disadvantaged communities. The Disadvantaged Communities Consultant Pool is this mechanism for compensating disadvantaged community-focused, community-based organizations and other entities, including Indigenous nations and Indigenous-led organizations, for their community expertise and time dedicated to informing NYSERDA programs and initiatives. And just a note about supporting coordination with New York State's investor-owned utilities. We'll be leveraging the regional clean energy hubs and energy equity collaborative in support of this coordination, information sharing, and useful discussions however possible. One slide. There are a variety of stakeholder engagement activities and feedback opportunities planned across a number of venues associated with each of these with the program and each of the initiatives. There are a variety of monthly informational webinars and all staff meetings associated with the regional clean energy hubs. There are a variety of monthly working group meetings and quarterly steering committee meetings associated with the Energy Equity Collaborative. And in particular, we'll focus on the anticipated in the early part of 2026. NYSERDA will convene the forthcoming Residential Disadvantaged Community Advisory Group, named in the EEBE LMI implementation plan that Scott Oliver mentioned at the top of the hour today. One slide. The implementation schedule includes milestones across each of the program services. In 2026, the regional clean energy hubs will release regional budget allocations and gather feedback on the hub scope of work. There will be an annual in-person convening for the network of all 12 hubs mid-year, with discussion about annual goals and metrics anticipated late in the year. The Energy Equity Collaborative will finalize a participation and governance plan early in 2026 and move on to updating working group action plans later in the year, while working to advance recommendations to NYSERDA related to priorities established by these working groups. And looking out into 2026 for the DAC consultant pool utilization, again, we'll be launching the Residential Disadvantaged Community Advisory Group in the early part of the year, with continuing input into the Empower Plus program and Affordable Multifamily Upstate program into the later part of the year. Mid-year, we'll focus on attention on expanding pool participation to increase the diversity and geographic representation in the pool. And we'll also focus on expanding stakeholder participation in the Energy Equity Collaborative working groups, which are compensated through the pool. If you advance one slide, we've included for reference the budgets associated with the Disadvantaged Community Engagement Portfolio. These have not changed since the last time I came and spoke to the public about this, and happy to follow up on any questions afterwards. Chris, I know we're running out of time, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Maud, if you wouldn't mind going to the last slide. Yeah, so first and foremost, I just want to thank you all for taking the time today to listen to the updates on the EEBE LMI programs. We're really excited about what this means for our ability to increase uptake of these critical services amongst low and moderate income customers. And I also want to apologize for cramming so much information into this hour and a half. We certainly will take all of the comments and questions that you guys have provided, and we will provide responses in a week or so. We're going to work to get them back around to you later this week, but it might slide into early next week. So what I'd like to leave you with is a preview of what's to come with respect to how the Department of Public Service staff will be approaching the performance management of this portfolio of programs. So those of you who participated in our webinars last year, where we kind of sought input from you on what those meetings might look like, I'm happy to say, we are going to be launching a quarterly performance management series starting in mid-April. And so we'll do this every quarter. And that'll provide a space to talk about how the programs are doing with respect to their identified goals, to look at opportunities for addressing any challenges that those programs are having in terms of either uptake or developments within the market that could pose some challenges, and seek solutions from those of you who are working in the space. And it also provide us space to talk about emerging issues, right? One of the things that we will ensure to do is to build in sufficient time for discussion, right? So unlike today where, this is more of an informational and we're previewing what's to come, we want a back and forth in these quarterly performance management meetings, and we will structure the meetings to allow for that. The other thing that I'll mention here is these quarterly meetings, we're going to do 2 of them in person every year, and we're going to look to make those, several hours in, so we could have sufficient time to have in-person kind of dialogue. And so to help us think about kind of the content and the structure for, go back please, for the mid-April meeting, we have a form here on the screen. Maybe we could drop it in the chat, and we'll also highlight it when we send a follow-up email, where we're looking for any feedback that you all have when it comes to topics that you want to make sure we're talking about in the first annual quarterly performance meeting. Sorry. So with that, I know we're over time, and thank you all for hanging out, and apologize again for not being able to get to all of the questions and comments that you submitted, but we will follow up over email to close the loop. If there are any additional questions that you have after today, I think several of the program administrators identified additional stakeholder engagements that you might be interested in participating in. Beyond that, we'll provide contacts, so that way, if you do have questions or you are interested in those stakeholder engagements, we'll provide you details on those as well. So with that, thank you all for the time and attention, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you.